But first, right before we came on the air, I was browsing the Facebook, and I saw someone posting online this sort of strange memorial to a cousin who had died 7 years ago. And this person, and I know the situation was going on and on about how a wonderful person this was, and it's so sad that she died young and all this promise. I'm thinking, oh no. I know what this is about. Why are you bringing it up? For what purpose? To get sympathy and likes and try to build up your own self-esteem by bringing up the terrible, untimely, and frankly unseemly suicide of this very young woman. And if this is to be dredged up in public to get sympathy or attention, there are ways to do it. My opinion is it should be done by the family, the direct family, not nephews or cousins, but people who were directly devastated by this horrible death. And not someone who is sort of tangential in the family who decides, well, to boost my likes and to get sympathy, I'll bring this up. Oh, I can't believe it's been 7 years already. I'm sure she's in heaven talking to all of the rest of our dead family members. And if you're going to do something like that, then do it. Say, hey, 7 years ago, this family member committed suicide, and it devastated her parents, devastated the rest of the family. If you are feeling unwell or unsafe, please make a call. But when you play it mysteriously, oh, what a sad thing. Oh, she was so funny. Too bad what happened to her. Well, of course, you're going to get people in your comments on Facebook, which is exactly what happened, who don't really know what's going on 7 years ago. And they say, hey, what happened? Why did she die so young? And then what do? You answer, oh yeah, it was a suicide. Ah, why didn't you say that in the first place? Or, I guess if you're desperate enough, you can play it up in the comments. Oh, it was a terrible situation, a lot of depression, suicide the only way out. But then you're trying to double down on the misery of others, double down on the death of a young person, double down on trying to get attention for yourself on Facebook. And as I am contemplating that conversation, was not a part of, just an observer, I'm thinking, well, hey, couldn't you be accused of the same thing, sir? And in fact, were you not accused of the same thing, sir, but not on Facebook, but on your blog? And speaking to myself, I said, well, yes, maybe, perhaps. So in 2009, the suicide of that other family member on Facebook happened 7 years ago. In 2009, I wrote this article about a friend of mine in high school named Jamie Musak. Jameson Paul Musak was his full name. Talented musician, talented actor. We worked together all one summer on a show that I wrote produced and directed called The Westboro Crusaders. We spent a lot of time with Jamie's house, a beautiful house. Filming, we used his house as a set. This is Jamie right here. And then when Jamie went to college, something happened. This is the TV show right here, Embedded, Bowles Blogs, right? Jamie right here. Played a crazy, wacky kind of character, which fit his personality, not typecasting. And he was on the drum line at the University of Nebraska. Jamie Musak right here. Jamie decided to kill himself. And my story was one of a pain and remorse and wondering and why, what happened. I'll put the link in chat. But I wasn't playing this up for likes or comments or sponsorships. We don't even run advertising on Bowles Blogs. Oh, there's Jana Marie, sweetheart. Thank you, baby. You're very sad. He was a very good friend of mine. So I could be accused of the same thing that this person on Facebook was doing. Oh, you're just writing about Jamie to get people to pay attention to you and not Jamie. Well, if you read the article, you can tell that I'm torn by it. I'm upset by it. I'm not trying to exploit his life. I'm trying to celebrate his life because I had found these videos and put them on Vimeo so we could watch them. So that was the instigating fact for writing this article about Jamie. And then Jamie's sister saw this maybe a year or two later and sent me a very vicious email saying, "Who are you? How dare you write about the death, the suicide of my brother?" And then she said, "Well, I hope my parents don't see this." And I responded to her. This is in private email. This is not in the comments or anything. And I said to her, "Well, I don't think we've ever met, but Jamie was a friend of mine from high school. We saw each other every day. We saw each other every week at the University of Nebraska. He starred in my show, so we worked together 24 hours a day, as did everyone on this show, for about 3 months, 24/7, all of us working, trying to get this television show up and running, and we did. And I am remembering fondly my friend. I'm not disparaging him. I'm not accusing him of anything. And I, in fact, know your parents. They were around while we were filming. They were very gracious to me and to the rest of the cast. So I understand why you're upset, but I'm not sure why you're upset with me. I understand you're probably upset with Jamie. But don't be mad at me for remembering your brother and memorializing him as best I could in this article." Well, she didn't say anything, didn't reply again, which I was sort of relieved because I really didn't want to get into any kind of messy fight with Jamie's sister, but I also felt I needed to stand up against the accusation. So that brings us back to our question of the day, is who owns a suicide? Is it the direct family, the parents only? Friends? Cousins, nephews? I think the difference is it's all about tone, it's all about context, and it's all about attitude. I wasn't misleading anyone here in this article. The title of the article is The Irrevocable End of Jameson Paul Musak. You can't take it back once you do it. And this is all part of my drama structure that I've talked about here, other places, the point of writing a dramatic piece, whatever it is, a story, an article, film, television show, is when it's all said and done, when the story is told, if everyone in that story can go back to the way things were at the very beginning of the story, then you have failed as a dramatist. There has been no irrevocable change. Change you cannot reverse. Change you cannot take back. Now, for young writers, the irrevocable change usually is the easiest thing to do is a death. A person dies, you go back to the beginning of the story. That person can't go back to the beginning of the story because at the end of the story, they're dead. So that's one way of doing it. There are other ways of doing it. Psychosis, a change in a person, they go insane, they cannot be put back to the way they were at the very beginning of the show. But if they can go back to the way they were at the beginning of the show, then you have not set up the structure of your play correctly. So that's why when I teach my students, I say you must have irrevocable change you cannot take back. And I said if you're experimenting, the most dramatic thing you can have a character say as the first line of any play is, "I'm going to kill you." Right there, there's a threat. Right there, there is the promise, in quotation marks, of an irrevocable change. And maybe someone dies and maybe someone doesn't. But when you say a line like that, "I'm going to kill you," and mean it, and you're not kidding around, right from the first words spoken, you have attacked and arrested the attention of your audience. And that's exactly what you want to do as a dramatist. So this is a story of Jamie, who is super talented, had friends who cared about him and loved him, and there is a bit of dismay going on, like, maybe if he had called me before he did this, or called someone, reached out, and maybe he did, and maybe he didn't. But in the end, we have to accept, whether we like it or not, that the person's life is in their own hands. They decide their own irrevocable end. And we may not like it, we may protest against it, but the decision isn't ours. The decision that is ours is how we choose to remember them. Do we exploit the death for Facebook likes and sympathies? Or do we try to understand the death, place the life in the context of achievement and promise, and even heartache and dismay? So to answer my question, who owns a suicide? The person doing the killing is the person who owns the suicide. And the rest of us who are left behind choose to remember and mourn in our own way. And we can only hope, we can only pray to the gods of irrevocable change that our grief and our mourning is respectful and tempered and not grotesque, but perhaps shines a light, sends an alarm for other people who may be contemplating that same unfortunate end.